Okay. Maybe I recite this. Is it ready, right? So do la re sa chule mi do ye mi de pa jin je lo ya ta tren ngaran zu mi Gampopa teni genze pe lam chorin xin chen wa de tene chepar tan pa chu che he pa ka ro tene ta de simjin yin tam je nu ba yo ma re zar yo ma re de la kwe yo ma re si per na meg tong tu gro wa u la so ba mi sa ne jao bak tene ta ja marja yo marja te so ke koran so ke dog sa ne tene drum down to sun zibo cha gro wa ngaran su mak dog su na he tene jerk make drat to gre so lo jerk make drat ba jerk make the dra to gris
Oh, okay. Yeah.
tene jang ngang ba to so ke chot ni nyam de tis ya na ngarang so ke khakal se to go mare te jang ngang ba to so ke churan so go ma de ji bon thong to ya chot de arang ya to ya de na ne ba yo do dara chon na ne pe nya ta we ina de koran so la ngarang so long to so gom ne de la ji ya la ne ba chim bo yo re song ro wa de zang sim jin yin ba la ne ba mang bo yo re si
So then we are picking up with these teachings on Gampopa's precious garland of the supreme path, superior to all other life forms of sentient beings in the 6 realms of cyclic existence. To say, however, this shouldn't necessarily be understood that, that the different realms of beings don't possess sort of their unique abilities and powers that are not keen, it's very sharp. Likewise, the peacock has the ability to ingest poison, and by eating poison, then it brings specifically more brilliance to their plumage. Their plumage becomes even more beautiful. Of course, if we take poison, then we die. It's very harmful. Snakes have the ability to hear with their eyes, and a certain type of water duck or swan has the ability to separate milk from water. So they can actually take extract the milk from the water, which of course we are unable to do that once water and milk are mixed. And fish can breathe underwater and so forth. So there are the particular kind of powers and forms among the beings of the 6 realms.
Tumo mai be chechu kang yoresina ngaran so ke hirap ripa de teni simji yin da durna lan me ba cha de yori te ta be ripa ke de la tro jingking ke teni ngaran so tara namba yin bo wa da tandu teni tamjer chob je sam mul rom bo che te yin zang teni kandar dunga ke jamso le thaya ke chakjin de chang wa yin zang teni simjin yin ke lutsera tamjor melik de tene garchiba rizo jimsin tere.
However, as human beings, the one thing that we possess, which is really unsurpassed or can't really be compared when it comes to, or can't compare when it comes to any of the other realms of sentient beings, is our intellectual, our ability, our intelligence as beings is really very developed. And not only that, but as in the context of Buddhist thought, especially a human existence which has the leisures and endowments, in which the leisures and endowments are complete, then there's the full potential to achieve liberation from suffering, to actually attain enlightenment. And so all of the necessary conditions are complete in the human birth in order to accomplish this. And so it is for this reason that we say it is supreme.
Teni bat mena chumi jini penangnes chudin je kanza je cheparn ba. Dan den andon de karerisina. Certam mena hier goya ndela tera tulo gchane ta ro yori. Ha da rapta chungwa yina tulo marpo ta sebo la su na ma yorba teni certam chimba yina tulo kare kuna ande yorba ti chen ta ro yori. Den za sanje chomden de go sone Kongke temba de noble nyeba kapsu kanza jeke tsin chek zamla domba na chek sunga yina yang teni yinda kchu jini je mikje sunang kchu jini je drba le sunam chepar na pa sung yore.
Kongta de tesa pena de tulo la sopagi. Kurla shira yapo komasang.
Chike ja basana yapo kohom na chranke. Chike ya
De tulok de tulok ki kurla chik sungimba de marser la sopa.
Rabta chunga tamje ke marpo ta chepo chungko yorwa. Teni mena se ya de papa kin dola la kuyo maris tulo do la bridge.
Dini yang di shingi chu mikche. Okay, lasso. So then number 2 says, one person practicing Dharma is superior to all ordinary people lacking interest in Dharma. So actually the term that is used for ordinary person in the Tibetan is one kind of clothed in black. So the black is actually referring to, or the ordinary clothing as opposed to the kind of bright red and yellow garb or robes of the monastic community. And so as it is said, to hear even like a single line of the Buddha's teachings is really unsurpassed or superior to all other kind of forms of kind of religious teachings or beliefs, and in particular in that there is the capacity to accumulate the non-conceptual sort of the wisdom. So not only does it become an accumulate by practicing Dharma is marebe.
Te mare.
Okay, teneso. Yeah, na yapo koyo sa mare samsong.
Sanje timba de ma nyam yom kapsu teni jirtang ngarang chok cha tang korwa chupa mangbu jepa le me je ke domba na je simo je yamana nyama je lo sungwa ni de domba na je simo je lo sungwa de pinyon che song yores. Sipo cha song
Re de domba nyachek, domba zungya.
Wow.
Pinyonche. Okay. All right. So I misunderstood, and also actually I just want to say that right now my on Khenpo's end, it's a little bit coming in and out. It's a little bit choppy today, so there are times when it is a little bit difficult to follow. So So the Buddha's so when in particular, when there is a sort of decline during a period or during the period of degeneration or decline of the Buddha's teachings, to hold even just one single vow for one single night is said to be of greater benefit than engaging in the sort of the practices such as making circumambulations and doing prostrations, the effort in accumulating the referential accumulation or the conceptual accumulation of merit. Rebe?
That's somebody in that.
De Marve. De Garcima Dignasum.
Gonda lanji tikpa chini panan ningbo tunji tikpa chebar paso ta lam chumtanda mandala tini lam mambo yore nangba la ya lam ta tikpa kongo ke lam mambo yore te tini ningbo tunji tikpa te tara kaps papa chaja chimbo ke lam te chado yorwa te chebar papa riso.
So then number 3 says the one vehicle of the ultimate essential meaning is superior to all the other vehicles of the path. So there are all of the various paths of learning and practice according to the different schools of philosophical thought. But the single path of the essence, the ultimate meaning or essence, the practice of Mahamudra, the path of Mahamudra, is the most supreme.
Yibate, tusam le chung shirap jini banane gomzong ki shirap keching majik chepar de paso. Tene ta shirap la yawa mangbo yori de sunange ta jirtang ke tusam ki shirap de chod chepari. Tin nane jang gomzong ke shirap sejede nelo tola nyambaran jogo ombe ke shirap yorwa tene te keching majik jina chepar de pagbari isi. Junsen kansin sanje ka sala ta nyer tank yorwa tek.
So then number 4 says, one moment of knowledge or wisdom arising from meditation is superior to all the knowledges or the wisdom cultivated from hearing and reflection or contemplation. While the wisdom developed through study and contemplation is very important, to have even just a single moment of wisdom which recognizes the true nature, which is cultivated through meditation, is the most supreme or more superior, and that in that in that moment in which there is recognition of the innate nature, one is closer to the state of Buddhahood.
Jebawen Demache Gewa Kijing my chick chipper the pass. Then do Jez Gewa la pena Nan in Himpa Draya, Tene ne Colandoya town, chat and Chumbertia Tamchen, do Jez Gewa Chad Yuri. That to soon anke, Tene Dumachi Gewate, Dami Betona Nyambaran Joba. Nelokatona Nambaran Joba, Kijing my chick samla de. So
then number 5 says one moment of non-composite or uncompounded virtue is superior to all the forms of composite virtue or compounded virtue. So what is meant by compounded or composite virtue are kind of the relative level efforts of gathering virtues such as pilgrimage and making ambulations, reciting texts and scriptures, making prostrations, and engaging in the concerted efforts of Dharma practice with the body and speech. And then the uncompounded virtue or non-composite virtue is referring to the wisdom that realizes the truth of selflessness, or the wisdom realizing the true nature of reality. So even if that is even a realization that occurs even just for a moment, momentarily, or for a single instant, it is superior to all the other forms of a compounded or composite virtue.
Mikje tingin zin jini je gomba we mimi ji tingin zin ke je ma jik che par tam pa so ta mikje je tingin zin tu so ngarang so hine gomya tang do so chama cha de yore ta de so samje ma cha par yin yang ta tanda mambo gomya ne je pa we mimi ke tingin zin ta cha ja chim bo cha de yore kan tar gomi chakchin namje ye nang gomi ke nyam ne cha ang ko yore de la Saraha ke sungbare zoju maja ne ko tamar ke hiba de ransar yas teni ten reken do kan mando te tapje maji ne ransar yas on yorwa ta de ta weting in jing ngala ke chik man ne tamna ten ti ting
zoju maji ne tamaja
ransar yas zoju maji ne de ta weting in
teni shimba
then the data things in the chapter the papariso around so hine so gom ya ke tablam mambo yorwate talans status la pindo chimbo yorite ine ya ta things in gom maro mi ji things gom te ta chapter papariso.
So then number 6 says, one moment of non-conceptual meditative concentration or samadhi is superior to all the conceptual concentrations or samadhis. And so the conceptual meditative concentrations or samadhis are referring to the different levels of absorption that are developed through practices such as shamatha or calm abiding and so forth. Even though these are actually inconceivably profound and beneficial, still they sort of pale in comparison with regard to the benefit of, say, the meditative absorption, the non-referential or non-conceptual meditation of Mahamudra. So for instance, in the 4 yogas of Mahamudra, the fourth level, which is non-meditation. So for instance, as Saraha says, without fabricating or modifying or contriving anything, just allowing the mind to drop into its natural state or to rest in its own place is the most supreme level of meditative absorption. And so even though there are many beneficial forms of meditation that are, found in the different sort of methods, such as in, the various forms of calm abiding meditation, among all the different types of meditative absorption or samadhi, the non-referential or non-conceptual meditative absorption is most supreme.
Sakje che gewa labda dewa insareo sakje che dewa chini che pawe sami che dewa keching ma ke sami che dewa kechik che partam phaso sakje ge dewa te ngaran so doyong a yorwa wambo nga yordu churba tene tsol tin dewa yore te tene ngaran so dewa chungchong tso dewa chungchong ri kains nan jurwa jing ge dewa ra Tijin Dunga Jing Yorba, Deyinzang, Deva Chungchong la Machapa, Deva Chungchong la Chana, Chimbok Deva the Togumari Song Yorba, Deyinzang, that the soak Deva Dele, then is Sami Devas, then Pena 차가 침보 tani da nyuma linji jibi yishi detong ngo te ta la ke chik zam nyam paran jo thamna ti dewa ten jura me be dewa res tani te songzang te che pan pa res
So then number 7 says one moment of undefiled, and here it says virtue, but actually that's probably a mistake. In the Tibetan, it should probably be bliss or happiness. So instead of the word gewa in Tibetan, it probably ought to be dewa, which is bliss. So we could read it then: one moment of undefiled bliss is superior to all the defiled forms of bliss or happiness. So for instance, when we speak, so the word here that is used for bliss is also the same word that means happiness, but in this context, it might be more appropriate to translate it as bliss. So what then constitutes defiled bliss or pleasure or happiness? It is the type of enjoyment that comes from the 5 desirable qualities of the senses. So the experiences of the 5 senses by apprehending the 5 desirable objects or qualities of the senses. And so this kind of bliss or pleasure is actually relatively very small. It's like a smaller, minimal type of pleasure or bliss. Because it is small, because it's subject to the nature of change. It is vulnerable to change, and so therefore it can very easily change into the nature of suffering. And so, as is often said, if there is attachment to smaller happiness or bliss, then one forgoes a much greater happiness or much greater bliss. So this greater bliss or happiness is referring to the undefiled bliss of Mahamudra, which is really experienced by realizing the natural state. Wisdom, which is the essence, that is the union of bliss and emptiness. And this bliss or happiness is not subject to change. It's unchanging.
sakje ge dewa de jura imba dimba rin do ngaran so yoba kala shimpo ji suna ya ningong ko zhugo do yong ge do de dewa de de ke mo do pe de zang ge ha ko yo de yo ta.
So we can easily understand how defiled forms of pleasure or happiness are really subject to change, even with a simple example such as, eating the breakfast meal. We eat breakfast and then our belly is full and we feel satisfied, but that only lasts for a certain amount of time. And then once the noonday rolls around, then we feel hungry once again. So this is the nature of the way in which the sort of defiled pleasure.
Sonzan malare bak sonrwa sami dev longna de son kong trapo kampo na yo de sami le saba me ba dewa ka longna ta par ta ji lang yo de yorwa te yo sonrwa.
So zagme dewa gare
Sami dev longna ta long sa ngang ra sami dev ngang la de son.
Mm-hmm. So trapu nangla degi yonayang.
Ya trapo kampo na de ke yore sayami koyami na yang te sem de chile yore is.
So as Milarepa said, I abide within the continuity of undefiled the undefiled bliss. And so even though he was dwelling within, in solitude in a cave, in mountain caves, with nothing really to eat and little clothing, still his experience was that of the ongoing state of undefiled bliss or happiness, which is independent of the defiled forms of happiness.
Oh, yeah. Tene jebate, Jula Nyamyong Jini, Jipawe, Topa Kechik, Shawa Chepardam Faso. The Khenpo Cha the Yore Hakogoya. Jula Nyamyong, Deva Nyamyong, Lubolan Tsun Tamnayang, Deva Nyongdova, Sarva Nyamyong, Kamba Tomba Nana, Dabu Shawa Daba. Tomba Kenyamyong. Amcho can dramla tongper na yang drama to atara can yamnyong jia or desar motopa, the general deva sarva tonga can yamnyong. Tenda chini ji yoba vejang, Jerdang yaborwa, tenda yam the lelapo jeto marwa. Ina chini tenda katse yobale, ta topa kejing ma check the chepan pass, take an ta metripak songrova, mitipak. Simni linjik jiba chujugo song, Semka Nelo de Gandar chujugo, or theatre chugo ngo topu topa, Kechik zam jiba in a techepart pabari so. Jumsin garners in a desert motoga nyamla corsa yori, Malarebaka corsa you song yori, Gampopa. Teni chugujiwa mi ba ton yona corsa yomari, norsa yomarwa. Ko te jimsen ke lam yang taba cha de yori dreve yang taba in be jimsen de tene ko tarto ken dreve te yin zang.
So then number 8 says one moment of selfless conduct. But I kind of actually, I think maybe it is one moment of realizing the truth of selflessness is superior to all the selfish conducts or all that which is experienced from the point of view of grasping to the existence of a self. So this is really very important when, for instance, it comes to the temporary experiences of in meditation. Oh, no, I'm so sorry. Wrong one. This is number 8. Yeah, so that's why it didn't make sense. So number 8 is the arising of one moment of realization is superior to the entire. One instant of realization is superior to all the temporary experiences that arise in the mind stream. So this is very important when it comes to the experiences of the temporary meditative experiences of bliss, clarity, and non-thought. One can have really powerful experiences such as, bliss that is so profound or so strong that even if one were to poke you with a weapon, a sharp weapon, then you wouldn't feel anything other than bliss. Or the experiences of clear light, where in a dark space or in the darkness of one's dwelling place at night, there's the radiance, like the shining moonbeams or radiance of the moon, or experience of non-thought, which is like even if someone were to blow a conch loudly right next to your ear, you wouldn't even be aware of it, or you wouldn't hear it. And so these are the temporary experiences of bliss, clarity, and non-thought, which are very good experiences and also not easy to develop. However, no matter how strong those experiences may be, just a single moment of genuine realization, as Maitrippa describes it, the co-emergent the realization of mind's essence, which is co-emergent Dharmakaya, even just a single moment of recognizing this true essence of the Dharmakaya is superior to all other forms of meditative experience. And so if one only develops the temporary meditative experiences of bliss, clarity, and non-thought, there is the potential still to go astray. It is possible to be mistaken or to go astray. However, when it comes to meditating on the Dharmakaya, there's no possibility for going astray, because that is the completely authentic, the completely perfect path. And the fruition then is also completely perfect or completely pure. It is the unmistaken fruition of the ultimate truth.
Da kahanang chukalamchir se ta tena chi thogo yore. Now kang now I na now nga la machi machupa zochi majane lamer ja yana. Chaja chimbo sine til los chupa chi to go ayo maris. Tini nawa thamje dev jolan ro yores. Tini ten kaps nawa se pha ka go yo mare. Tungba se chordro go yo mare. Guard up the trawa. Tini te sola jurchun ro je tang ne tene tanda benche zangi ke che tanda ke zochi tang go yo mare. Ko nawa zang jing mala ya yana. Nawa de junche mi ba yin zang. Chak chin chung ngo de junche mi ba chong. Che chang na ngarang zu chong thok ko yorwa. Chang ya gan betso ma je na. Tene ngo bo den sin sin ke jing ro yo zang. De wo de tene dong han yo yong ko yorwa. Ten zang ngarang zu chor go za de nawa le chor go yores. Nawa le chor tang de nawa de la himbar menzin ba. Teta wo kun chor go yores. Nawa de ngarang zu kan nang tene de la hin yun du tene de kan ching ro yores.
So Khenpo Tenzin de shira jering nune shira yabo yumare samsamla ko gire yene yang ke kemsat ro chagyore che samsamla che do yoro yene yang gang tu chegi chepa de tapshi yo samarwa.
Lasas.
So then so we speak of bringing appearances onto the path of the Dharmakaya, in which appearances shine forth, or they appear or manifest, and allowing them to do so without a fabrication, without modification, without contriving, then appearances themselves become the expression of the Dharmakaya. And so there isn't any Mahamudra, like a Mahamudra isn't anything other than that. And when appearances are experienced from within the ongoing state of Mahamudra, the appearances themselves become the nature of bliss. And so there's no need to block them. There's no need to reject appearances. There's nothing. So appearances are not rejected, and emptiness is not actively like sought out or encouraged. There is nothing to accept or reject, nothing to block or encourage. So one's experience of meditation is free from accepting or blocking and encouraging, or accepting and rejecting. It is without any fabrication around good and bad, or pure and impure. So when the appearances themselves are appearing in an unbroken continuity, and so if the essence of Mahamudra is also sustained in an unbroken continuity, then there is no fault that can come from the arising of appearances as long as one remains in that ongoing state of realizing the essence. If one falls into grasping, if one's realization of the essence wavers and one falls into grasping, then the arising of appearances can become the nature of suffering. So if there is no grasping, if one is able to sustain the recognition of the essence without grasping, then the appearances themselves are naturally liberated. They're liberated upon arising. If there arises grasping, then appearances become that which is the nature of binding, or they become the nature of the fetters.
착진 강가면은 제양 무슨 라드출도 송야다 대차도 요러 가랑선 강낭도 왔다 탐제고 마주봉안에 요타바 대리마도 나와로
So chiang masen.
제양 무슨 라드출도 착진 강가만 요한테 텔로박
So ladu chu latu sena.
Ladu chula tu sedita machi machu ako tanda ko tia ngang yo ro ngang la ne pe parar na something jawa lo na mi sumbata malare bak 착진 강가마 쟁근도 외직
Re yena yang ti inji ke la la tang ya po drinking mendo tikitsek.
어리
Chiang ma sem ladu chu latu.
다지양 문진 장이 그남도 장 문진 라두 줄도 송
So ladu sena pena chuma meba.
주만바 제주 다 잡아와 착진 내lok대
Dang chu sena di pena chu tamche rewa.
조주 잡아 조주 주다 조주 잡아 그 주라 제 찾아 정보 망보 데 착진 강가만 바저치 나 망보 데 나요 말왜
Re yena yang ti tsek re re chindu dringi yo marwala.
레레 공다 야 되네 다다 신송
So, for instance, in the Ganges Mahamudra, and I'm not sure, and I don't remember exactly how this is usually translated, but without thinking anything, without contriving anything, look directly at essentially like the essence itself, look directly at the nature of the mind itself. When that seeing that in which there is nothing to be seen, that meditative, that there is no activity of meditative concentration other than that, that itself is the superior meditative concentration or meditative absorption, without any fixation, without any fabrication, just completely resting within the natural state.
Alas. Tini gubade. Chi de chepe lekje jini ji jepa we chi de jawa me pe chupa ke chi chepar dam paso. Ta gandar deang donda karesina maung pe chi de nda dan de jao sam ke kulong ko to ne tini pe na gewa dropa yin yang chertang ke yapo rite yang ko yagna gi chod chirpa te yang bar sibala tini chi de jawa me pa terwa 대양 적진 강가만 나온도 레도 군절 따위자본 초신 송여러봐 레와다 도바 마음발란다단다다 용로 제나 선배 레와미 ong 마음발란다단다다 용도거리 진 도바야미 바 대답 따방알네나 따와탄지 그 양제리 송여러봐 대다
Redo kungya de
따위 제본 초시 따위 제본즈다 따와 탐칭은 난그 양지 초도 줘봐 제본 따위를 해서 제본스야지 더 만난 그 다지 제찬라고 지로봐 만난 그다 제찬라 응은진 그 여러 거죠
So then, as number 9 then says, one moment of selfless conduct is superior to all the conducts. So I do think it would be better to say one moment of conduct done within the state of realizing the nature of the selfless nature is superior to all the contacts engaged in from the perspective or within the state of apprehending the true existence of the self. And so generally speaking, there is conduct that is bound up in the grasping to the sort of the concept of some continuity of self. And so therefore, there are all these activities that are done, even the virtuous activities, even the virtuous endeavors that are kind of bound up in grasping with regard to, planning for the future and sort of based on this concept of a continuity of self. And so of all of the activities, an activity even, the most supreme is activity that is done from within this sort of selfless, the recognition of selflessness, which is beyond hope and fear, beyond any sort of expectation or planning, objectives such as planning for the future. So essentially, activity that is done from within the state, which is, or the recognition of the view. So as it says in the Ganges Mahamudra, when that which is completely free of hope and fear is the king of activity, or is like the supreme king. And so of all of the so when activity is done from the perspective of the recognition of this view or the truth of selflessness, then there is no hope and fear.
Sanzing ke tongji jini je jepa we ngupo jeang ma song wa chepar dan pa so. Tas chanjing sanzing ke ta jimba la pa par de simba nga yorwa. Ta to so jini je jepa we so. Ta to so sunam ku cho nan de ge yore. Teni ngopo che ama songwa chami himi ke ngani teni da kandar hirap ke tsi simba thoni mikpa me bu goni teni gewa na chik drobate chebar da pa re so.
So then number 10 says, having no fixation to anything whatsoever is superior to all the material generosity that there is. So the material generosity, or there's, for instance, in the different categories of generosity, within the perfection of generosity, there's the category of the generosity or giving material things. And so this is, the methods for accumulating merit, for instance, are the practice of generosity, and within that is the practice of material generosity. But to be completely free of any attachment or fixation, to abide within, for instance, the practice of the sixth perfection, which is the non-conceptual accumulation of wisdom through the non-referential wisdom, a single activity done within this state is the most supreme form of generosity, or supreme among all virtues.
Da dege chebar da pa bu chucho de hyusin bare teni chetarar chejang de bu chucho de hyuins.
So then this So then this completes the 10 superior things, and then the next category is the 10 situations in which whatever is done is excellent.
Da dambo de lo semzu songwa ganza ki jawa tangyang leg la ma tangyang leg so. Da yang da ba jangchun cho de da semji bu ganza zenari jangchun sem kto la nyamli nang king ji ganza go nan de yore da da. Tenda ganza de ke jiting ke jawa madam ne pa rutu ndo le de na ya bo ri de jiting ke jawa drum na de ke yore song ri kain ne yin pin jang jang ri ma do random pu zhe zang ya yo ma ro.
So then the first of these is for one whose mind is totally gone to Dharma. If they abandon activities, it is excellent. And if they do not abandon activities, it is also excellent. So whether this is referring to an individual whose mind is completely sort of merged with Dharma, or one whose mind is suffused with bodhicitta, someone who has bodhicitta, it applies to both. So one who such an individual, since their mind is always engaged in perfect dharma, then whatever they do is fine. Whether they are even if they are engaged in worldly activities, this is also fine, because their worldly activities are done from the perspective of, or done with the benefit of accomplishing others, the purpose of others. There's not even like a single hair's worth of self-interest in their activities. And so therefore, to engage in worldly activities is completely fine, because it is all done for the benefit of others.
Nibat romdo semla chuba ganza ge gomjang le la magomjang le so. Da romdo nang ni chu go yore ngarang su nya chu nyang le se pe donggo la romdo nang ni chu go yore. Romdo nang ni chu suma ina da ndan song do chu gomjang le la magomjang le. Nandong kares no romdo simnang ni chu suna chu tapar gom de yore gom gala ne de yore ti jim sin ro.
So then number 2 says, for those who have cut through all the misconceptions in their own minds, if they meditate, it is excellent. And if they do not meditate, it is also excellent. Because since if one has fully overcome like the misinterpretation of reality, if one is without misconceptions, then actually any whether it is that one is meditating or not meditating, one's ongoing experience itself is really that of meditation.
That romdo semla machuna teni gom na yang teni tsorje ga gom ta teni redo jing ga gom ta tanda cha ro yoris ta den sanje ga gom pang to pa ke lam la tha ren ro de yo barwa darong tha ren bo ke le ka ji cha de yori de yin za ta chi tang di zo che nyam ni chen to bo tham je ke la dama ro ji rin do ma to ke teni chi tang ma pa wan do na oh hine ke chi zam la meeting de je bu ko ne ke chi zam gon na sunam de sam ji ma cha barwa to so ha go go yo tang so hirap ke tha la long ma song ba.
So on the other hand, if one has not abandoned or overcome misconceptions or misinterpretation of reality, then even if one meditates, then one's meditation is often bound up in hope and fear, or the meditation itself is colored by the misinterpretation or misconception, and so therefore as long as that is present, then the state of Buddhahood is more far off. So actually, the path of it actually lengthens, or the path of to awakening, and so. On these instructions that we've now gotten to are actually meant for really high level. They're very sort of like high level in their meaning, or they're addressing a high level of experience, and so it isn't. One shouldn't think, for instance, discount the other, sort of the for instance, the fact that to meditate on calm abiding, or to do shamatha practice, or referential, to engage in conceptual or referential meditation, even for a single moment, has really extraordinarily great or very vast, a vast accumulation of wisdom. And so that isn't to be discounted, but these comments or these statements are made kind of from the perspective of like a high level of realization.
Oh, teni da simba den doyo lan chwa chu ba kanza ke chami de se je jang lek la ma je jang le so. Dan doyo la chwa chu se ba den doyo la zambo ye reading ya che de la chapa si ba da ngin ba ri ba to la so ba dan da ma yin ba cha yin ken chwa chu de be kanza ke teni 다 노용 탐지 참이 long 제나르라 이해나야 다 벤나 강종 디초 다베 참이 long 마제나야 저게 요레소네.
So then number 3 says, for one who has cut through craving for sense pleasures, if they abstain from the activities of passion, it is excellent. And if they do not abstain from the activities of passion, it is also excellent. So for once one has reached a level in which there is really no grasping or fixation to the desirable qualities of the senses, or there's no there's no craving for the pleasurable qualities of the sense objects, then for such an individual, if they abstain from sort of these activities of the senses, it is fine. And also, if they don't abstain from them, if they engage in the activities of the senses, it is also okay.
Chirtang per nga tawe na ti meto de la hui cha de una ti chapu ji ne nga chen phu song ai na ji tin de ne. Par de ne kap so tarong te meto de la hin cha de chal la no do. Hin cha chal la andu ti meto de ta ti dapo te ke ji ma yin ba nga ke ngo mi hi ba ta nga ma ga sa da la te na ti ni da wa ji ne. Ta kantar ta tu sot ko dungan ro ji cha ang yo ro wa ten za do yong la chitang ngaran so ken do yong de som jo pan jo mo se go na le la po yo ma re te yin na yang sem nang ni cha yin de de su chok chong ro dang bo jo to so pa ma pang ro wa cha yin de chok chong ro da te ni ka le te compound ro de te ni ko ran yin ge ba char zorje when madam na ya dik dewa dra rewa kantar tini longs je de na ya ndeke yoris ko chami ngani chami himi je ngani
So, for instance, Khenpo says if he becomes really extremely attached to his flower, then then this can create a great deal of like stress during his lifetime because of the strong fixation and attachment to the flower. But then when he dies and his consciousness then travels on in the bardo, it's possible that then that flower will be given to somebody else. And so if that flower is then given to somebody that Khenpo doesn't know or especially maybe someone that he doesn't like, then not only then has he been, is he still really bound by this mind of grasping, but then that grasping turns into hatred or anger, and then it becomes a source of great suffering. So it isn't, maybe it is going, like we can't exactly say that, we should abandon all of the qualities of the senses or all wealth and possessions. Of course, that isn't easy. However, we can diminish our fixation and our attachment to things. And so this is something that is developed over time, little by little, as we practice diminishing attachments, then that becomes a more and more sort of naturally ingrained way of being, having less fixation and attachment. And then when there's really not really so much attachment there, when one is able to abide within a state that is free of fixation, then whatever you enjoy is fine. Then there's no harm in enjoying the pleasurable qualities of the senses, as long as there's no grasping or attachment.
Kasi ti meto de ma trong sunga che ke meto yin tata nge dapo jab do na kadu nge meto de la ning ji pon ro smron soba ji na o man pe me hong do ro ba sem na ti o ti dapo te trong sari ti man kang ji tong ya na ta de du mat la phin ro yo ro khorang par do tang ka wa lu lang do yo na ya.
Tesa yapoko masong karsi pena ngarang mi shimba gi meto tapo jatna kong so trong du?
Ti nge meto te ma yimba je ki meto ris ma te trong sar rin ji tin de ne pe pen so ro wa te ni nge meto te ka du meto te la meto don thong wa yin na ya te du nge o man pe me hong tri pa meto mo wa che ya bai na te ni ti meto dapo te khran che wa sima ka wa yu na ya pin ro ko yoris
Maso.
ko mulu lang do yo na ya khurang che ren wa te ne nyu wa la pin ke yori pardo tang tanda la yo na ya jikta ma chung ya la pin ke yori.
So On the other hand, if this flower of Khenpo's is actually a flower that belonged previously to someone else who has now died, then now that it is in Khenpo's possession, if every time he looks at the flower and enjoys its beauty, if that becomes the cause then for him to remember its previous owner, and then as he looks at the flower, he remembers the owner who has died, and he recites Om Mani Padme Hum, then in that way, he's able to benefit the person who has passed away, whether they are currently in the bardo or if they have taken a future life. So each time that he reflects upon that, looking at the flower and recites the Mani mantra, or turns that experience of looking at the flower into a dedication, then there's great benefit for the previous owner. Then they, if they have taken another life, then it can help to create the causes for, or it can help them to be free of illness and to have a long life. And also it can help them if they are in the bardo.
Bardo lo yo nan jikta sama chong ro. Bardo lan jikta.
So if they're in the bardo, then it can help to diminish their fear or terror in the bardo.
Oh yeah. Teni yibate chuni ngonsam to ba kanza ke phukdong de nyaya lela mangbu chopong je jang like se. Chuni ngonsam to zuma kanza te teni trapok tongba na gomja nyamne ji yo na pe ya bori te. Teni cho chongcher na pha yo ne mamang na teni chu jung kolo ko la so ba tang ta ta par chu he ba chi bo ma da teni so so ke ngo thi je ne tanda che na teni ko ya bo yori song te kar che na like the yori song re.
So then number 4, it says, for someone who has directly realized the nature of all things, it is excellent to live alone in an empty cave, and it is also excellent to live as a leader among the community. So for such an individual, someone who has realized, has direct realization of Dharmata, then if they spend their life, alone, practicing alone in an empty cave, then this is really wonderful. It's also really wonderful if they, if they are in the city, or in go amidst, others in public gatherings and teach the Dharma, share the Dharma, turn the wheel of Dharma, then this also is very good. This is also excellent. Essentially, whatever they do and wherever they go, it is excellent.
Tani nga ba de nawa jumar hi ba kanza ke chikpur rutu to de jang lai la jakham chomi de kor jang lai. Ta nawa jumar hi song yi na tani nanse tamji jumar to ondu ko jakham zamelen koraja ndo de ba na pe yapo res. Te yapo ngu cha de yoro ha. Ten nawa jumar hi sa de so so tapuk tarate ne win ba chila de ne tani namdo semlan kanshar tamji jumal tsamla meng ne tanda che de na ndke yori sonre dan de so ndawa yena ta teranga so jehin je ba he ak tu son ma da mas to dan de so nam dara chaja chen bu he de dara nam je ye na ke tane tudar la so ba tamji ka tawa ka che sa yin tudar chen reng chung som de so la jan he go yori de dan dai de yori de so
So then number 5 says, for someone who has realized that all appearances are like magical illusions, to remain alone in an isolated retreat is excellent, and to travel around without direction is also excellent. So for somebody who has fully realized the dreamlike or illusory nature of all phenomena, then if they, wander around, or if they travel the world and wander to different places, this is very wonderful, very excellent. Also, if they remain alone or isolated in a solitary cave, then whatever appearances that arise in their mind are understood to be illusory, the nature of illusion. And so they, having realized the level of non-elaboration or freedom from elaboration, then they can remain in an ongoing state of this recognition, whether they be in a cave or wandering, throughout the world. It is excellent. So there are the three stages, or the three levels of freedom from elaboration or non-elaboration. That of lesser realization, middling realization, and greater realization.
Semla wang top kanza kendo pu yung tin pang jang le la tin jang le song. Semla wang top ma to ke cei de tang mo che na tawa to ma to lan jo go yo ba. Tawa ma to na semla wang top si de le la po yo ma re. Yang men na xie dang ge yin wang de xiao, yang men do cha yin wang de xiao la so ba cha yong go yo re. De na yin zang wang to xi ba de rang wang. Nam to den zin ba tam ji ge yo ma ta ba, le ma ta ba. Ta ni nga da wo jin xie ba yin na. Xie dang me ge sig ma ta ba ba. Du cha choi cher me ne ba. Ti mu ma ge zhen me ne ba. Cha do long ge yo me ne ba. Ta te da ba.
Chado gare?
Cha do ge long ge yo me ne ba. Long ge yo. Thế ta ra wang thập.
Yes. So then, number 6 says, for those who have attained complete control over their own mind, to abandon the pleasures of the senses is excellent, and to attend to them is also excellent. So that which determines whether one has complete control over one's own mind or not really depends upon the recognition or realization of the view or the lack thereof. If one has not realized the view, then to really have control over one's own mind completely is difficult. So one is either, there's grasping that arises then to the whatever affliction that arises, whether anger or desire, the discursive thoughts or the proliferating thought forms of the mind one ends up bound in grasping, and so if one realizes the view, then whatever temporary states of emotions or thoughts that arise, one remains unwavering. They can't they are unable to hook one or to catch one. And so, for instance, in the poetic language, one is not burned or one remains unburned by the fires of anger. One is not carried away by the water of desire. And the darkness of ignorance does not obscure, and the wind of jealousy does not cause one to waver. And so in that case, then one has real freedom of mind. One really has control over one's own mind.
Tene ngajar rake ka mene ba. Sirna ke thakpe dam mene ba. Ta tene semla rawang thap sa yumong trok thone rawang thap chade.
Nga jal rigi kare matupa?
Ka mataba ka. Ngaja
Kak matupa.
ruanda wachada yora te ka mataba. Dun the pan ro gora te rak ka den rota marwa. Then simna te ta xiaoba nang yi xiaoba tagba nang yi cha de te dam mataba. Te du ta san lo rang wang tap so. Ja.
Likewise, it is said, in that case, the mountain of pride cannot deter one or block one, and the ropes or chains of greed cannot bind one. So, in this way, if one is able to remain unaffected by these by the power of the 5 poisons in this way, then one has really gained control over one's own mind.
Then that freedom ring on it. Right?
And that is real freedom. Yeah.
All right. That's okay. Tani dumbat chancho ke semda dimba kanza ke wimbar drba che chang le lo cho su yindong che chang le so tan de chancho ke semda dimba kanza wimba la nyam le drba che ne yo de na pe ya bori so ne tani mama bo ke cho su tani ka zi yin ke dong da drba ina ya bori si ta de ne ko yin ji no ba ta bra chancho ke semda.
So then number 7 is, for someone who possesses bodhicitta, to practice in solitude is excellent, and to work for the benefit of others in community is also excellent. So for somebody, an individual endowed with bodhicitta, whether they remain alone in solitude or if they engage in the world with others to accomplish their benefit, it is also excellent. Bodhicitta itself is like a wish-fulfilling jewel.
Ta je pa de mugu thanglu me ba kanza ge la me kya drong de de jang lek la ma de jang lek so ta la ma la mugu thanglu me sin jun che me ba yo de ba kanza de la ma ke ndram la de na ya po ri gang la ma gen ze ju gang thong ai na ya po jang thong de gro wa de ne de kanza de la men dun rang la ma de na ya de ke yo ri so ri kains na lam dangwa so nyamsli jobje malare ba ke dangwa ning la hyukpa te lincha chola tapandra so lam dangwa te ning la certem du teni chu cha de cha chona na ma lo so na teni cha da chonin ren ro de ko yawa sem da ba te da ba sem da dangwa ni da so yora te da ba jwa ina lama danga kawa yo na lama tana yo de garba te ha ko go yoro tartuk churang ke sosu churang ke jancho ke semte lama te ri de yora wache lama cha chim bo go ya te lama tu ju de la jancho ke semje yora te la zo zeng go yora teni tartuk lama dang ransem ngo yermi de gom do yo nam ju nga so pa mo re da dem cho re so ma bo gom yora te kap so tara Tenzin wangkor tusu kapsa lama tang darati nga so ransa yermi de gom ko yore gom ya te che yermi mayin pa je khakha yin de ba ji ser te tong ne che zo ju ja yo mare dambu ni jikpa yermi yin de ba je lo drop ta to pa ke khakha la pa chi song a de da chur ha ko ar chi ne ko don to par chi ne ti chi de tana nang go yoro
So then number 8 says, for those with unwavering devotion, to remain in the presence of one's guru is excellent. And if one doesn't remain in the presence of one's guru, it is also excellent. Here, if one has sort of deep, but it can unrelenting or continuous, unwavering faith and devotion to one's spiritual teacher. If one stays close to one's teacher, then it is excellent, or it's very good to remain close or to remain in the presence of one's teacher. But also, if one doesn't remain close, if one doesn't remain in the presence of one's teacher, that is also excellent. Because with this ongoing mind of devotion, then one practices the teacher's pith instructions. And so really, it is by maintaining, keeping, practicing in such a way that the teacher's instructions are always alive. So, for instance, as Milarepa says, when the pith instructions dissolve or merge with one's heart, dissolve into the heart like salt dissolving into water, one's own mind and the mind of the guru are truly inseparable. And so just as water, a block of salt dissolves into water, and then you cannot separate the two. You can't take the salt apart and separate it from the water. They're completely indivisible. And so likewise, as is said, wherever the pith instructions are, that itself, or there is the Lama, the teacher is there. The teacher is present if the pith instructions are present. And really realizing one's own mind as Dharmakaya is the true meaning of the Lama. If one recognizes the Dharmakaya of one's own mind, one is never separate from the spiritual teacher. When one is maintaining the mind of bodhicitta, then one is always united with one's Lama. And so one's own mind and merging with the mind, the enlightened mind of the guru. For instance, when we do the samadhi empowerment, when we take the samadhi empowerment, visualizing whether we visualize the guru in the form of chakra samvara, Vajra Yogini, and then there's the merging. Our own mind and the mind of the Lama become indivisible. But what happens then is not actually that first our minds were separate and then we merged and became one, but really our minds were indivisible to begin with. Our minds were indivisible from the beginning, and so therefore, in realizing that indivisibility, one recognizes that the concept that they were ever separate, or the perception of ever having been separate, was what was mistaken. So actually, primordially, our minds are indivisibly one.
Gobate. Mount taking don't guard the Imbekanzal, Murup Jongya Lila, Majonga Lexon. Ta Chu Mambo 2. Don't hako, what and Kanzatella? Then Murup Jongyang Degerilla, Ta Majona degree son. Nandon carries the Mount taking don't guard the Badumurum Nankita, Yahucha the Yoroa. Call Mount taking don't go at the Imbekanzala, Gobadra, Murup Jongyang lay on Majon like so. Chu Mambo Tune, Tonda Hakwatting Murup Nanki Yahuteri lie. Murup Junsin Karesena. That take a Karang Sosokan Dudon, the young so dropped to Yorova. Sosun Dudon de Dani Zo de. The Sanji to Companto Tamjin Chimbi Shi, Jula Jewarchiva Teroa Tamjin Chimbi Shi Jula Jegoina, then Sosoke Mambo 2, Gualan Hakot and Agoda Yi is Yen Nebe Nelok de Hakorsibatella Yi Sonroa. Ye he is it. Oh, that data but tell last job would object to Gomados.
So then number 9 is for those who have heard a lot of Dharma and have actually understood it, if signs of siddhi or attainment arise in their practice, it is excellent. And if they do not, or if obstacles arise, it is also excellent. And so for one who has listened to the Dharma or who has engaged in extensive study, and real authentic meaning has arisen, or real the real authentic understanding has developed. Then if there are sort of signs of attainment or siddhis, then this is fine. And if there are not siddhis, this is also fine. In fact, to give rise to authentic understanding based on a lot of listening or study is a siddhi in itself, or is that it itself is the only attainment that is really needed, because if one understands the meaning well, then one is capable of really accomplishing one's desired purpose, one's intended purpose, which mainly is enlightenment, reaching the state of Buddhahood or final awakening, reaching the state of complete omniscience, or attaining the state of omniscient wisdom. And so if then through one's extensive study or practice of hearing, then to have real understanding, then the direct result of that, of giving rise or developing authentic understanding, is that one will eventually realize the true nature or the primordial wisdom. And so what primordial wisdom is like is the primordial, the true nature which has always been present, or the primordial true nature, that recognizing that or understanding that is what is meant by primordial wisdom, because the word itself is ye, which is primordial, and then she, which is knowing. So knowing that which has always been present, or that which is primordially so, the primordial true nature phenomena. And there's no siddhi that is more supreme than that, or that is there's no better attainment that is needed.
담배 추로 투바제 데니 동다고 무릎대 차도 비줌치 란동 인도니가 접토고 요레스 데마도 그 라마직 직 송도 대진능하 데스 디마나 진도트 네마 그 군다 자 첨보 던다 요레스 다지 군다 던다 베 라마직 직 주바리 세 군다 자 첨보 요레 등상 두소 근 추바양 라케 요마리스 추바 인간 추바 표현으로와 가이서 군다 사바 두소 히라 센나미 조스데 야보 샴드니 데스 추바 표현스 군랑네 자치와즈 참마메 가힐 니알데 요르시 베데 요르시 데서 추바라케 요마르선다 든라인자 니 먹는 통토코 요마로 니 먹 통마다 데델 데바제고노 깔레 카보노 소소게 마베 니알데 요로 다 투삼 야보 제도 요나 데디인라 히에 랑게 냠니 제나 란동 인동 니 찬럽성아 데
So if through extensive study or hearing or listening, one gives rise to understanding, authentic understanding, then one is able to accomplish both one's own and others' benefit. So this brings to mind, Khenpo said, something that Lama said once that actually he really thinks is really true. So for instance, there are these really, like for instance, really really, really special, really powerful, and kind of precious statues or ancient, articles of faith that have a great deal of blessing and power in them. But then, because they're so precious, then they're hidden away. They're really guarded and hidden away. So like no one is even able to see them. But then that doesn't actually end up kind of supporting the continuous stream of their blessing, because there's no one is able to see them and give rise to faith and then make offerings. So they don't have, instead they, only have the new statues and objects of faith. And so then those are collecting kind of the power and blessings through the people actually being able to see them and give rise to faith, and then make offerings and have them as objects. In any case, to engage in extensive study and contemplation, and to nurture one's own practice through the standing through.
Tô ban cho to ben nam jo la tumong ke trta yu jang lai la mi jang lai so tumong ke trta ka re se na do la sha ji yo ya na wa ta nang kha ne priya ta da de la so ba tham je tumong ke trta cha de yo wa tin ta tô ban cho ta ba sin ben cha cha chim bo ngo to bu kan sa la bra de la tin ta na ke chik trta ro de so 투몽 그럽다 유나 안되게 요래대 야보래대 미나 안되게 요래서 가인스나 두고야대 타도 그 또바 차자치 뭉고 내룩 또바 들어와
So then number 10 says, for a yogi who has attained supreme realization, it is excellent if signs of the common attainments or the common siddhis arise, and it is also excellent if they do not arise. So the examples of common attainments, so in the categories of the supreme and common attainments or siddhis, those miraculous sort of feats, such as leaving footprints in rocks or flying through the sky and so forth, are examples of common or ordinary siddhis. And then the ultimate siddhi or attainment is realizing the ultimate truth, or directly realizing the state of Mahamudra, the essence of Mahamudra. And so in that case, if the ultimate attainment is realized, then whether there are expressions of common attainments or there are not the presence of the common or ordinary siddhis or attainments, it is excellent. The most important is the realization of the ultimate truth, or realizing Mahamudra. So if this is attained, if this realization is there, then that is most supreme.
Oh yeah, ta te ke chetarar che ta tambe chu chu yundin chus te hyo. Ta tambe chu se de kanda insare ta tayari danga sok.
So then that completes the 10 supreme acts, and then the next is the section on the 10 qualities of perfect dharma.
Ta tambo de. Ta tambe chu la ya de ngune kanda ro ngarang sul pinto kanda yo sare ta ha ko gri da zone. Zole yengo. Ta kamke jajin.
So now we so now we really want to understand, or we really need to understand the qualities, the perfect qualities of Dharma. This is what's most beneficial.
Tambo de 去给我叫当帕尔的亲把主播当东巴尼他们街个子他们街的something也的呗，你说吧something也当肉没不牛巴人就把也当，我就明着拉送把你顶顿就完了，当不去用上。他当不给我就是把的嘞，给我就是把的，俺让就错了呢。这当就错了呢，go么go的，太错没把的 go 啊嘞。伊那样说说没这个，你没这个就说呢，给我觉得 go 都的没都什么当完呢？天天还 go 嘞。说这把是把的，才同样个决策的有了吧？那没跟着吧？军团跟着的，那嘛话差的有了，因说这的吧？他这了当然是把军团用啊军团什么不有了，只说他隔壁那些那这个有了。刚到因说这的吧，那没了的呢。说说才同啊，那嘛话等着，但等你啥家开些了呗，出把家娘家都说用多啊。说说个农村这么这样，但是现在了农村，看这咱们居民那样，等你定出把家是能得上的年都搞的话，但是搞的来了话来，不然俺让说什么因了，他做个东啊，有不精神搞的，就俺嘛。查到个网给他做这的吧，得了见着有了，拉米了，拉嘛了，当不天天经常当了，他怕这得是些的东西，都做个红啥嘛来。
So then, if the first of these 10 qualities of perfect Dharma says that the arising of the 10 virtues, the 6 perfections, all forms of emptiness, all factors of Bodhidharma, the 4 noble truths, the 4 dhyanas or realm, the form realm concentrations, the 4 formless absorptions, and the ripening and liberating methods of secret mantra. The presence of all these things in the world are a quality of perfect Dharma. So first is mentioned here in this list, the 10 virtues. And so it is so important for all, both, whether, in a general sense, beings, whether they are like religious or not, or Buddhist or not, should practice the 10 virtues. It is of a great benefit for all, for anyone and everyone to practice the 10 virtues, and we need not have any doubt about that. And so first, to also understand the faults of not practicing the 10 virtues, and the results that come from engaging in the 10 non-virtues. So for instance, with the first, which is the act of taking the life of living beings, the direct result of that, or the immediate, or sort of the direct karmic ripening, the result, which is the direct ripening, is that one has a shortened lifespan. If one is in fact born as a human being, then one has a shortened lifespan. And then the residual karmic ripening, the ongoing residual karmic ripening, is that one might be afflicted by many illnesses, or one may experience a great deal of the physical illness during one's lifespan. And then there are the residual karmic ripenings that ripen as experience, and the residual karmic ripenings that ripen as tendencies. So there are a lot of different sort of categories of karmic ripening that we could go into, but for lack of time, we won't go into all of that. But in any case, the direct karmic ripening is usually a shortened lifespan. And so it can be the case, for instance, that even throughout one's life, if one hasn't really done anything wrong, if one has not done any, or one is completely not at fault, one hasn't done any mistake, that then one can be kind of the victim of seemingly senseless violence, or that someone is there, all of a sudden there is struggle or fighting or violence that enters one's life with no seeming purpose, seeming reason, that one hasn't actually in this life created any identifiable cause. One hasn't actually been in the wrong or done any mistake. And this is karma. This is a result of karma. So for instance, the result of taking rebirth as a jealous god, the jealous god realms are afflicted by jealousy or violence and fighting, and so this type of suffering is also a direct karmic ripening from former lives.
Sokju pangbo kindebete tsendalaya tserengwa da nemi ba. Tendare te tambechu ku yon tin res.
Sedila.
Tsendala yang tsereng nemi ba ke tendra yongro.
And so the direct karmic ripening of practicing the opposite of taking the life of living beings, practicing abandoning, harming the lives, or abandoning killing, or practicing, protecting the lifespan of beings, then results even in this life in greater longevity and fewer illness.
Ta chuchu chukchek par da panchan chi tne tren chuchu chukchen ni chuni tang kama ni shesapa da gorgre pachan gorgre sams.
Awesome. So now we'll take a break until 11 o'clock Arizona time. And then when we come back, we'll also probably go about 20 minutes later. So the teachings will probably...
Instantly and permanently. Jumper Baba Jazar Jimba Kunda Zombo de Andeje. The Dai Gunja Jizo Dalo Jegiwan the Dai Danja Rabdo Simje Nebai Jenya Ba near the Nella Darjer. Governor Mala Bada Joa Mebar Jo Chanjo Zumjo Rumba Jemaje Banan Jijer. Jiba Nyamba Meba Yang Gona Gondo Bewa